not adequate to withstand if we should be hit by a hurricane.
I stand by my conviction that it is still too low-lying to put a major investment of the magnitude of the millions that the government is proposing into that project there. Where we were going to build it was on some land just across from the Arabus, where you had at least about 120 feet elevation above sea level. And it was going to be a deal where we swap land of equal value with Provident Limited with government land so that there was no money changing hands. And we could have put a purpose-built healthcare facility right there on gentle sloping land and be out of the way of the direct highway, but still central for all intents and purposes, because you know, when you go up by the Arabus, that isn't too far away from the airport. So we had, in fact, we had already received tenders or an expression of interest from Canadians as well as Americans and locals who wanted to build the hospital. And the most expensive bid at that time was about $40+ million from the Canadians. And we had a bid from an American firm for $16 million. Now, the reason why they were going to do it for 16,
that's the
Americans, is because they were in the business of building hospitals, and their building the hospital here in the Turks and Caicos Islands was mainly for humanitarian purposes. They were not looking at making any money out of it, but more or less like a contribution to the Turks and Caicos Islands and a contribution to humanity. And that was going to be a fully furnished hospital with all of the latest MRI, CT scan, you just name it, it would have been there.
Honorable Salva, are you telling me tonight that as the former Minister of Health for over almost 9 years, up until 2003, because I want you to explain this so that our viewers, especially Turks Islanders that are viewing the show over, that are not living within the island, so they can understand clearly that the highest bid before you left office for the hospital, and can you clarify whether it was these bids for building both hospitals?
Yes. In fact, we were going to get at least 100 beds.
100 beds, because we're talking about 80 beds now.
No, we are talking about 60 beds, 40 in Provo and 20 in Grand Turk.
Okay, so you were getting 100 beds, and now we're talking about 60 beds.
Yes.
And the highest quote that you got from a Canadian company was $40 million.
Yes.
And the American company, $16 million to build these two state-of-the-art hospitals.
Yes.
Well, Honorable Salva, can you attempt to shed some light as to why is it then today in Turks and Caicos Islands we are being asked as citizens to undertake a drastic undertaking of a loan for the same hospitals that you have initiated, did all the background work, and now we are talking about it went up 75 million to 100 million, and now we are asked to take up a bill of $125 million for the same hospitals that you had already done all the groundwork, had already architectural drawings already done. Can you explain why is it that this hospital now is $125 million?
It is really incredible, it is mind-boggling how it is that this government can arrive at such an astronomical figure. When we look at other places where similar hospitals are being built, where you have more beds being provided than what is being provided here, just 60 beds. BVI, for instance, over 100 plus beds. And they are only paying about what, $60-odd million?
Less, yeah, just about that or less.
Right, or less. How is it in the Turks and Caicos Islands we're going to have a single-story building, maybe two-story in parts, and we are looking at $125 million. That's over $2 million a bed.
Well, Honorable Salvo, let's look at the backdrop of what we're dealing with here now with these two hospitals. You've gone from a tender from $40 to $16 million, and I will assume that this government met that in place when they came into power. And you said under your ministry, you put out tender internationally as well as locally to build these two hospitals. What we have experienced here under this administration, there is no process of tendering. There's only one company that has been named to build these hospitals. The same company that built the Premier's house, the same company that is getting the new airport without tender, the same company that is building the hospitals without tender, and the same company that is building the Deputy Premier condominium project on Grace Bay. Can you, as a minister, as a former minister of government, as a former minister of health, why would a government give one company without going through the tendering process, which is illegal, by the way, which is not in accordance to the ordinance of this country? Why is it, Honorable Salvo?
To me, Sean, it doesn't really make good sense to proceed the way we are proceeding. It stifles business. Other persons who are in similar line of business in construction and engineering, they can never be able to be of any viable competition in this country if they are not going to be able to get a job. In fact, we have seen a road paving plant closed down and left because all of the road building contracts was given out to just one company.
One company.
You know,
that ministers has shares in.
Well, I don't know for sure, but you know, and I can't really comment on that. But if you say so, right?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
But the thing is, to see all of the major businesses, all of the major contracts amounting into hundreds of millions of dollars being awarded to one company, it begs people to question and to query, well, what is going on? Is there no one else who have the capability of even doing a job? You know, and it really doesn't make much sense.
Honorable Salvo, first of all, for those of you who's just tuning in, you're watching Let's Talk Politics with Sean Malcolm, coming live from the Turks and Caicos Islands. And tonight, my guest is the Honorable Clarence Salvo, former Minister of Health, former Minister of Education, Youth, Sports, and Gender Affairs, and current Deputy Leader of the People's Democratic Movement, the opposition party here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Honorable Salvo, you touched on a point, you made a point just now about the cost of the hospital. And I think this opens up another question. Last night,